Welcome back to the channel. Follow my story until the end and comment on which city you are watching this from. At 78 years old, I never thought my own children would try to murder me for money, but that message at the beach saved my life. My name is Emily. I have been a widow for 2 years, ever since my beloved James passed away in September of 2021 after 52 years of a happy marriage. The emptiness he left in my life was indescribable. Every corner of our house in the city held memories of a shared life. That July afternoon, while sorting through our old photographs, I stopped at a picture taken in Central Park. James was holding me by the waist, and I was wearing a blue dress. We were young, full of dreams and hopes. "What would you think about what has happened, James?" I whispered, caressing his face in the photograph. I got no answer, only the silence that had been my constant companion since his departure. The first months after his passing were the darkest. The loneliness suffocated me. It was then that I found refuge in faith. The local community church became my sanctuary. Father Anthony, a wise 65-year-old man, welcomed me with understanding. "Emily," he used to tell me, "the pain you feel is the reverse of the love you shared with James. Do not run away from it. Accept it as part of your eternal connection." His words comforted me. Little by little, I found peace in prayer, in meditation, in the feeling of being part of something bigger than my own suffering. During this period of spiritual renewal, my 3 children intensified their visits. At first, I felt excited, thinking that we had finally developed the family bonds that James had always desired. Matt, my oldest son, who is 55 years old, came on Tuesday afternoons. Sarah, who is 52, came on Thursdays. Jessica, the youngest at 48, came on Saturdays. It seemed like a perfect routine of family support. But now, remembering those visits with a new perspective, I recognized disturbing patterns. They always asked about my health in a specific way. "Mom, are you taking any new medication?" Matt asked with a curiosity that now seems suspicious to me. "Have you had trouble remembering things?" Sarah insisted, who worked at a pharmaceutical company. "Have you considered setting up a power of attorney for medical emergencies?" Jessica suggested frequently. The questions about money were constant, but disguised as concern. "Mom, have you thought about consolidating your savings into a single account to simplify the management?" Matt suggested. "Would it not be more convenient to have online access to your funds?" Sarah insisted. "Have you updated your will since Dad passed away?" Jessica asked. At that moment, I interpreted their interest as genuine concern. Now I see that they were gathering information, studying my vulnerabilities, preparing the ground for something I never would have imagined. July 8th, 2023, would change my life forever, although it would take me a while to realize it. Matt called me a week before. "Mom, we are organizing a family lunch at my house in the suburbs. It will be something special, to celebrate that you are in better spirits." The suburbs were a luxury-gated community on the outskirts of the city. Matt had bought a villa with a pool there just 2 years ago, something that surprised me considering his salary as a financial consultant. When I arrived that Saturday, the garden table was set with unusual elegance. Fresh flowers, porcelain dinnerware, cut crystal glasses, a display that seemed excessive for a simple family lunch. "Mom, how great to see you!" Sarah exclaimed, hugging me with an effusiveness that did not match her usual self. She was wearing an outfit that looked newly bought, with jewelry I did not recognize on her. Jessica joined the reception. "You look beautiful, Mom. That color looks wonderful on you." Matt came out of the house with a bottle of wine. "I have saved this Cabernet Sauvignon especially for the occasion. It is an exceptional vintage." As I greeted him, I noticed the gaze of Rachel, Matt's housekeeper, watching us from the kitchen door. There was something in her expression. Worry? Uneasiness? At that moment, I did not give it any importance. "And Chloe?" I asked about her 9-year-old daughter, who I was always happy to see. "She is with her grandmother," Rachel answered, avoiding my gaze. "They will be back in the afternoon." The lunch went by with a strange mix of normality and underlying tension. My children talked animatedly about their lives, their jobs, their plans. They told me anecdotes, laughed, and toasted to the united family. But there was something artificial about all of it, as if they were playing a role in a well-rehearsed play. After the soup, Sarah brought a different wine. "This one is special, Mom. I brought it from a friend's winery. Try it. You will love it." The wine had a slightly bitter taste that the sugar seemed to hide. After the second sip, I started to feel a strange heaviness in my eyelids. "I think the wine is not sitting well with me," I commented, noticing that my tongue was moving with difficulty. "It is normal, Mom," Jessica said with a reassuring smile. "It is a strong wine. Maybe you should eat something else." As the lunch progressed, my perception became increasingly confused. The voices arrived distorted, the images blurry. I had the feeling of floating. "Mom, taking advantage of the fact that we are all gathered, there are some family health insurance papers that we should update," Matt said, placing a folder on the table. "They are pure formalities, but we need your signature." In my state of confusion, I could barely understand what I was signing. The documents passed before my eyes like in a fog. My hand moved mechanically over the papers that my children presented to me, one after another. "Sign here, Mom, and here, and on this page too." I vaguely remember Rachel's voice from somewhere in the kitchen. "Mr. Matt, do you need anything else?" Her tone seemed tense, worried. "No, Rachel, you can leave if you want," he replied abruptly. The last thing I remember clearly from that day was Sarah carefully keeping the signed documents in a briefcase with a combination lock. "Thank you, Mom," she said with a smile that now gives me chills to remember. "You have done what is best for everyone." I woke up in my house the next day, with a severe headache and gaps in my memory. My children had taken me back, explaining that I had fallen asleep after dessert, something they attributed to my age and exhaustion. During the following week, they continued with their usual attentions. Daily calls, small gifts, frequent visits, and I, in my naivety, interpreted all of that as a renewed family interest, without imagining that I had just signed documents that could cost me my life. On July 15th, a week after the lunch at Matt's house, I woke up startled at 3 a.m. A disturbing dream had interrupted my rest. In it, I saw my children leaning over me, their faces transformed into smiling masks as they offered me a glass of wine as dark as blood. I turned on the nightstand lamp and sat up. My heart was beating fast. For some reason, that dream had awakened an uneasiness that I could not ignore. Something did not fit in the fragmented memories of that lunch. I got up, put on my robe, and went to the kitchen to prepare some chamomile tea. While waiting for the water to boil, my gaze fell on the calendar. It was the 15th, the date I usually checked my bank accounts, a habit that James had instilled in me and that I kept faithfully since his death. I returned to my room with the tea and turned on the laptop that my grandson had taught me to use. I logged into my bank's website, carefully entering the password. The screen lit up with my account summary, and then I saw it. A transfer of $50,000 made on July 10th to an account I did not recognize. I felt the air leave my lungs. "This cannot be," I muttered, reviewing the information several times. I had never authorized such a movement. With trembling hands, I searched my files for the bank's phone codes and dialed the emergency number. After several minutes of identity verification, the operator informed me that the transfer seemed correct. "Mrs. Emily, the transfer was authorized with your electronic signature and confirmed by text message. Everything is in order, according to our records. But I never authorized that transfer," I exclaimed, feeling the panic taking over me. "I am sorry, but we have a document signed by you. Furthermore, according to our records, you have recently granted a partial financial power of attorney to Mr. Matt. He is your son, right?" The world seemed to stop around me. Financial power of attorney? I had never consciously signed anything like that for Matt. There must be a mistake, I said with a broken voice. "Could you send me a copy of that document?" "Of course, we will send it to the email registered to your account." I hung up the phone and kept looking at the computer screen, trying to process what I had just discovered. What was happening? What exactly had I signed during that lunch? The email arrived minutes later. I opened the attachment with trembling hands. There was my signature, unmistakable, at the bottom of a document that granted Matt authorization to carry out operations in my name. The date, July 8, 2023, hit me with a wave of nausea. The fragmented memories of the lunch began to take on a new and sinister meaning. The special wine, my sudden drowsiness, the documents that I could barely read. I could not go back to sleep that night. At dawn, I got dressed and took a cab to Matt's house. I needed immediate answers. I rang the doorbell repeatedly until he finally opened the door, disheveled and in his pajamas. "Mom? What are you doing here so early? Did something happen?" I walked in without waiting for an invitation. "Matt, what is this?" I asked, showing him the printout of the bank document. "Why is there a $50,000 transfer from my account? And what is this power of attorney that I supposedly granted you?" His face changed momentarily, a flash of alarm that he quickly hid with a conciliatory smile. "Mom, calm down, please. Sit down. I will make you a coffee and explain everything to you." "I do not want coffee. I want explanations. Right now," I said, as he led me to the living room where we took a seat. Rachel appeared in the doorway, evidently surprised by my presence. "Do you need anything?" she asked, with a look that went from Matt to me. "Coffee for two, Rachel, and then you can go do the grocery shopping," Matt replied in a tone that allowed no argument. Once we were alone, Matt adopted an expression of fraternal concern. "Mom, do you not remember that we talked about this during lunch? You asked me to help you with an investment. The $50,000 are in an investment fund in your name. I explained to you that the returns are much better than your checking account." I stared at him, in disbelief. "Matt, I would never ask you to invest my money without consulting me first, and I would never, ever grant you power over my accounts. The documents are signed by you, Mom." "We did everything correctly," he insisted, maintaining a reasonable tone. "Maybe you do not remember it well. Sometimes memory plays tricks on us at a certain age." That comment about my age infuriated me. My memory is perfectly fine. What I do not remember is consciously signing those documents, and I demand that you reverse that transfer immediately. Matt sighed, as if he were dealing with a stubborn little girl. "Mom, it is already done. The money is invested. Canceling now would mean losses. Give me time to show you the benefits. You will see that everything has been for your own good." "For my own good? Or for yours?" I asked, feeling the distrust growing inside me. At that moment, Rachel came in with the coffee. I noticed she was looking at me intensely, as if wanting to communicate something to me without words. After Rachel left, I continued questioning Matt. His answers were always convincing, reasonable, but they did not dispel my uneasiness. There was something in his attitude, an underlying tension that fed my suspicions. Finally, exhausted by the confrontation, I agreed to give him a week to show me the documentation about the supposed investment. He walked me to the door, insisting that everything was fine and that he only wanted to help me manage my assets better. While waiting for the cab, I saw Rachel in the distance, returning with a grocery bag. Our eyes met briefly, and this time I was sure there was worry in her eyes. That encounter with Matt only increased my uneasiness. Something was happening with my children, something related to my money, and I was determined to find out what it was before it was too late. The days following my confrontation with Matt were tense. My children intensified their attentions, but now I perceived a disturbing subtext in every call, in every visit. On Wednesday, during my usual visit to the community church, I looked for Father Anthony. I found him in the small courtyard garden, watering the plants. "Father Anthony, I need to talk to you," I told him, sitting on a stone bench. He joined me, leaving the watering can aside. His face reflected the kindness and wisdom that had always comforted me. "You seem worried, Emily. What is wrong?" I told him about the strange lunch, my sudden drowsiness, the documents I signed without clearly remembering it, and the discovery of the bank transfer. As I spoke, his expression became increasingly serious. "Emily, what you are telling me is very serious," he said when I finished. "Have you considered the possibility that they administered some kind of sedative to you? The idea had crossed my mind, but hearing it from Father Anthony's lips made it more real, more terrifying. "Do you think my own children would be capable of something like that?" He sighed deeply. "I do not want to accuse anyone, Emily, but your story suggests that something improper happened during that lunch. I would recommend you take extreme precautions. If they offer you food or drink, you could politely decline, and it would be wise to consult with a lawyer about those documents you signed." His words stayed with me on the way back home. The idea that my own children could have drugged me to get my signature was too painful to accept, and yet it would explain many things. That same afternoon, Matt called with a proposal that took me by surprise. "Mom, we are organizing a family trip to the coast this Saturday. We thought it would be good for you to disconnect a bit. The weather is splendid." The coastal beach town was about 60 miles away from the city. We used to go as a family when the kids were little. James loved that place, with its extensive sand dunes and sunsets over the ocean. "I do not know, Matt. I do not really feel like going to the beach," I replied, remembering Father Anthony's warning. "Come on, Mom. It will be good for you. Besides, Jessica has made a reservation at that restaurant that Dad loved so much. It would be like a small tribute to his memory." The mention of James softened me. Maybe I was being too suspicious. Maybe everything had a reasonable explanation and I was allowing my fears to cloud my judgment. "All right," I finally agreed. "What time will you come to pick me up?" "At 9 in the morning. We will arrive in time to enjoy the morning at the beach before lunch." After hanging up, I kept staring at the phone. Had I made the right decision? Father Anthony's warning resonated in my mind, but I also longed to believe that my suspicions were unfounded, that my children were still the people I had raised with love. That night, while preparing a small bag for the trip, I made a decision. I would go to the beach, but I would keep my eyes wide open. I would not consume anything they offered me directly. And I would carry my cell phone at all times, with Father Anthony's number on speed dial, just in case I needed help. What I did not know then was that that trip to the beach would mark a turning point in my life, a point of no return. The next day, Thursday, Sarah dropped by my house unexpectedly. "I just came to see how you were doing, Mom," she said, bringing a small bouquet of flowers, "and to make sure you have everything you need for the trip on Saturday." Her kindness seemed genuine, but now I observed her gestures with new eyes. I noticed how she discreetly inspected the living room, as if she were looking for something. "I am perfectly prepared, thank you," I answered, offering her a coffee that she accepted. While we chatted about trivial topics, I remembered something I wanted to ask her. "Sarah, do you remember that special wine you brought to the lunch at Matt's house? It made me feel quite sick." For a moment, a flash of alarm crossed her gaze, quickly replaced by an expression of innocent concern. "Did it make you sick?" "I am so sorry. It was a rather strong wine, probably not suitable for you. I will not bring it again." I observed her carefully while she answered. There was something rehearsed in her reaction, as if she had anticipated my question. When Sarah left, I was left with a feeling of growing uneasiness. I decided to call Matt with an excuse to cancel my attendance at the trip, but he did not answer. I left a vague message about not feeling well. Minutes later, I received a message from Jessica. "Mom, Matt tells me that you might not come on Saturday. Please reconsider. We would be very excited to all be together at the beach. The sea air will do you good." The insistence was suspicious. Why so much effort to get me to the beach on that specific Saturday? I decided that, despite my reservations, I would stick to the plan of going, but I would be even more cautious than I had anticipated. On Friday night, I received another call from Matt, confirming the details for the next day. His voice sounded tense despite his efforts to seem relaxed. "We will pick you up at exactly 9 in the morning, Mom. Do not forget your hat and sunscreen. The July sun can be treacherous." "I will be there," I replied, faking enthusiasm. What Matt did not know was that I had also made my own plans. That afternoon I had spoken with my neighbor Mary, who had promised to call me at 11 in the morning to make sure everything was fine. If I did not answer or if my voice sounded strange to her, she was to call Father Anthony immediately. It was an extreme precaution, I knew, Part of me still resisted believing that my own children could represent a danger to me, but the evidence was piling up, and I could not ignore the chills running down my spine every time I thought about that trip to the coast. That night, I barely slept. The questions spun in my head like an out-of-control merry-go-round. What was really going on? Why did my children seem so interested in my money? What were they planning for Saturday? At dawn, I made a decision. I would go to the beach, but I would bring my own lunch and drink in a small bag that I would not leave at any time. I would not consume anything they offered me, and I would keep my eyes and ears wide open for any suspicious conversation or behavior. What I could not imagine then was that someone else had also been watching my children, someone who would soon become my unexpected savior. Saturday, July 15th, dawned with a clear sky and a warm breeze that anticipated the heat of the day. At exactly 9 o'clock, Matt's car stopped in front of my house. Sarah greeted me from the passenger seat with a bright smile. "Mom, how great that you decided to come." Jessica was waiting for me in the back seat. Their enthusiasm seemed genuine, and for a moment I felt guilty for my suspicions. Maybe it had all been a misunderstanding. Maybe they really just wanted to spend a family day at the beach, honoring their father's memory. The trip to the coast took a little over an hour. My children talked animatedly, recalling anecdotes from their childhood on that same beach. I joined in their memories, sharing stories they had forgotten, moments that James and I treasured in our memory. For a brief moment, I felt transported to happier times when we were a family united by love, not by dark secrets. We arrived at the beach around 10:30. It was a perfect day. Bright sun, calm ocean, a gentle breeze that eased the heat. We settled under a blue umbrella near a beachside food stand. Sarah spread out the towels while Matt stuck the umbrella in the sand. "I am going to get something cold to drink," Jessica announced. "What would you like, Mom?" I remembered my resolution not to accept anything they offered me. "Thank you, sweetie, but I brought my own water," I replied, showing the bottle I carried in my bag. "The doctor has recommended that I drink plenty of mineral water." Jessica exchanged a quick look with Matt that did not go unnoticed. "Whatever you want, Mom, but if you change your mind, I would be happy to bring you something." During the next hour, we enjoyed the sun and the beach. Jessica and Sarah went for a swim while Matt stayed with me, apparently absorbed in a book. From time to time, he would take out his phone to check messages, his face tensing momentarily. At around 11:30, my phone vibrated with a message from Mary, my neighbor, asking if everything was fine. I replied affirmatively, grateful for her concern. "Everything okay, Mom?" Matt asked, noticing my interaction with the phone. "Yes, just Mary asking how the day is going." He nodded, but I noticed his gaze land on my phone with an interest that seemed excessive to me. At 12:30, Sarah suggested visiting the food stand for lunch. "They have a fantastic seafood platter," she commented, gathering her things, "and homemade fruit punch that you would love, Mom." "I prefer to stay here a little longer," I replied. "I am enjoying the breeze and the view." My answer seemed to upset them. Once again, they exchanged looks that they tried to hide. "Come on, Mom," Jessica insisted, with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "We have reserved a table. The restaurant fills up fast." Faced with their insistence, I agreed to accompany them, but determined to maintain my vigilance. At the restaurant, the patio was overflowing with families enjoying the food and the beach atmosphere. They seated us at a table with a view of the ocean. "I have ordered a bottle of white wine to go with the seafood," Matt announced, the same one that Dad liked so much. Once again, the mention of James seemed calculated to soften me, but this time it would not work. "I will only drink water, thank you," I said firmly. Sarah seemed increasingly irritated by my refusals. "Mom, what is wrong with you today? You are acting strangely. Do you not trust us?" The question hung in the air, loaded with implications. Before I could answer, my phone vibrated with a message. Normally, I would not have checked it during lunch, but something urged me to do so. It was an unknown number. "Leave discreetly. Do not say anything to your children. Your life is in danger." I am in the parking lot, red car. I felt the blood freeze in my veins. Who was sending that message? Was it a cruel joke, or Was I really in danger? "Everything okay, Mom?" Matt asked, noticing my paleness. "Yes, I feel a little dizzy. I think it has been too much sun," I improvised, putting away the phone. "I am going to take a short walk to cool off." Matt stood up immediately. "I will go with you, Mom." "No, it is not necessary," I replied with a smile that I hoped looked natural. "I just need to walk a bit. I will be right back." Jessica looked at me with concern. "Be careful, Mom. Do not wander too far." With steps that I tried to make casual, I walked away from the table toward the boardwalk. Once out of their sight, I quickened my pace toward the parking lot. My heart was racing. Was I committing madness by following the instructions of an anonymous message? But something inside me told me that this message was my lifeline, that if I returned to that table, I might not have another chance to escape. Upon reaching the parking lot, I frantically searched for a red car. There were several, but in only one did I see a woman who seemed to be waiting for someone. As I approached, I recognized her face. "Rachel?" I exclaimed, surprised to see Matt's housekeeper. "Mrs. Emily, thank God you came," she said with a trembling voice. "Please, get in the car. We have to leave right now. I will explain everything on the way." I hesitated for a moment. Could I trust her? What did Rachel know that I was unaware of? "Why should I trust you?" I asked. "Because I have discovered what your children are planning to do to you," she answered with urgency. "And if you go back with them now, I fear you will not live to see nightfall." Her words, spoken with absolute conviction, dispelled my doubts. I got in the car, and as Rachel drove off, I looked toward the restaurant. In the distance, I saw Matt standing, scanning the boardwalk, looking for me. At that moment, I knew I had just made the most important decision of my life, and that nothing would ever be the same. Rachel drove in silence for several minutes, taking us away from the beach on back roads. Her face reflected tension and fear. "Are you going to explain to me what is happening?" I finally asked. She sighed deeply before answering. "Mrs. Emily, what I am going to tell you is very hard to believe, but I beg you to listen to me until the end." She stopped the car in a deserted industrial area, far from prying eyes. With trembling hands, she took out her cell phone. "I have worked at Matt's house for 5 years. He has always treated me correctly, and you have always been kind to me and my daughter. But a few days ago, while I was cleaning his home office, I found some documents that made me suspicious." She showed me the first image, a bank document with my signature, but which I did not remember signing consciously. "Do you recognize this signature, Mrs. Emily?" I examined the screen closely. It was undoubtedly my handwriting, my characteristic signature. The date, July 8th, 2023, the day of the lunch at Matt's house. "Yes, it is my signature, but..." I tried to remember. "Wait, that was the day of the lunch at Matt's house. They asked me to sign several papers. They said they were routine forms for the family health insurance." Rachel nodded gravely. "That is what I thought too. But look at the document you really signed." She zoomed in on the image. My eyes widened with horror. It was not a health insurance form. It was a bank transfer authorization for $950,000. My entire fortune, the savings of a lifetime of honest work. "This cannot be real," I muttered, feeling the blood freeze in my veins. "There is more." Rachel continued, showing me another photograph. This time it was a power of attorney that granted Matt absolute power over all my assets. And a third image left me breathless. A draft of a will, clearly forged, where I left my entire inheritance to my 3 children, eliminating the charitable donations I had planned to make to my church. But how is it possible? I was conscious when I signed. I remember that day perfectly. Rachel looked at me with a mix of compassion and urgency. "Mrs. Emily, do you remember feeling strange after eating? Dizziness? Confusion? Drowsiness?" A chill ran down my spine. Indeed, I remembered feeling unusually tired that afternoon. I had blamed my discomfort on the heat and my age. But now, I confessed weakly. "I found this in Matt's kitchen," she said, showing me another photograph. It was a small bottle with a medical label. Diazepam, 6 milligrams. There were also traces of a colorless liquid that I did not recognize. My mind worked feverishly, connecting the dots. The insistent family lunch, my strange drowsiness, the documents I signed without reading completely because I trusted my family. "They drugged me," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "I believe so," she confirmed, "but the worst is yet to come." Rachel took a deep breath before continuing. "Last night, while I was clearing the plates after dinner, I overheard a phone conversation that Matt was having. He was talking to someone about a very important debt. He mentioned the amount of $400,000. The figure hit me like a punch. It was a fortune that none of my children could gather with their regular incomes. Matt sounded desperate. He was telling the person on the phone that the old problem would be solved soon, that he had access to the necessary funds. When he mentioned your name, Mrs. Emily, I knew I had to warn you. Who do they owe so much money to? I am not completely sure, but I heard names that scared me. People from the notorious housing projects involved in illegal loans. Matt repeated the name Jimmy the Blade several times. I knew that reputation. The city had its dangerous areas, and ruthless loan sharks were a reality that I preferred to ignore. But now that reality had caught up with my own family. But if they already have access to my money with those forged documents, why do they need— Rachel interrupted me with a grave expression. "Because there is a problem, Mrs. Emily. Banks are being more cautious with large transfers from elderly people. They need you to be present, conscious, and personally ratify any transaction over $100,000. Then I understood the extent of the danger. It was not enough to have drugged me once to get my signature. They needed to keep me under control, manipulable, perhaps permanently unable to make independent decisions. There is something else you need to know," Rachel added in a barely audible voice. "This morning, before you left for the beach, I heard Sarah on the phone with someone. She mentioned something about a plan B in case you became a problem." "Plan B?" I could not hear everything clearly, but she mentioned words like accident, stairs at home, and quick inheritance. The horror of the situation hit me with all its force. My own children, my own blood, were not only planning to rob me, they were willing to get rid of me if necessary. That is why I sent you the message, Mrs. Emily. Last night I called the police and explained everything. They are investigating, but they need more proof. The police are involved? Yes, Detective John Miller is in charge of the case. He was the one who suggested that I warn you discreetly when you went out together today. The police are already on their way to his house to execute a search warrant. My mind tried to process all this overwhelming information. In less than an hour, I had gone from enjoying a family day at the beach to discovering that my children planned to drug me, rob me, and possibly kill me. What do we do now, Rachel? We must go directly to the police station. Detective Miller wants to take your statement and do a blood test to see if there are still traces of the drugs they gave you last week. I felt a mix of gratitude and terror. Gratitude toward this brave woman who had risked everything to save me, and terror over the inconceivable betrayal of my own children. Thank you, Rachel. I do not know how I will ever repay you for what you have done for me. She looked at me with determination. You always treated me with respect and dignity, Mrs. Emily. I could never allow them to hurt you. As we headed toward the police station, a question hammered in my mind. How had my family reached this point of desperation? And above all, what else were they willing to do to get my money? The central police station building in the city stood imposing under the midday sun. As Rachel parked her red car in the visitor area, I felt a tightness in my chest that had nothing to do with my heart problems. The idea of formally reporting my own children was almost unbearable to me. Mrs. Emily, I know how hard this is for you, Rachel said, gently squeezing my hand, but remember that they made their choices. You are only protecting yourself. I nodded in silence. The words got stuck in my throat. 55 years raising Matt, 52 for Sarah, 48 for Jessica. A whole life of sacrifices, of unconditional love, of teachings about honesty and respect. And now, here I was, about to hand them over to justice. Are you ready? Rachel asked gently. No, I answered honestly, but I guess I never will be. Let us go. Upon entering the police station, the air conditioning hit me like a cold slap. The place was bustling with activity. Uniformed officers, civilians filing reports, phones ringing, a microcosm of human misfortunes concentrated in a single space. "Good morning," Rachel greeted the receptionist. "We have an appointment with Detective John Miller. It is urgent." While the receptionist made a call, I looked at the wall clock. It was 1:45 in the afternoon. My children would have already noticed my prolonged absence at the beach. Would they be looking for me? Had they understood that something had gone wrong with their plans? "Detective Miller will see you right now," the receptionist announced. "Hallway on the right, third door." We followed her directions until we reached an office with a plaque that read, "Detective John Miller, Economic and Financial Crimes Unit." Rachel knocked softly on the door. "Come in," replied a firm voice from inside. Detective Miller turned out to be a man in his 50s, with a robust build and piercing gray eyes that seemed capable of seeing beyond words. He stood up to welcome us, extending his hand firmly. "Mrs. Emily, Miss Rachel, thank you for coming so quickly. Please, take a seat." His office was austere but functional. White walls decorated only with police diplomas, a detailed map of the city, and official photographs of authorities. 2 computers were running simultaneously, showing databases that I could not make out. "Mrs. Emily, before proceeding with your formal statement, we need to run some urgent medical tests," he explained in a professional tone. "Our forensic team requires blood and hair samples to detect possible residues of substances that may have been administered to you without your consent. Is it still possible to detect something after a week?" I asked with concern. "Depending on the substances used." "Yes," he answered confidently. "Diazepam can remain detectable in the blood for 3 to 7 days, and certain metabolites persist in the hair for up to 3 months. If they really gave you the combination that Miss Rachel describes, we will find evidence." A forensic technician came in carrying a professional case. The procedure was quick but thorough. Blood draw, hair samples, and a basic physical exam to evaluate my general state of health. During the process, the detective continued explaining to me the legal steps that would follow. "Based on the photographic evidence that Miss Rachel provided, we have obtained a warrant to wiretap your children's communications and search their homes. The operation started 2 hours ago. Are they already in my house?" I asked, surprised by the speed. "Indeed, a specialized team is executing simultaneous searches at the residences of Matt, Sarah, and Jessica. We have also requested the bank to freeze all their accounts to prevent unauthorized transfers while the investigation progresses." The police efficiency pleasantly surprised me. In less than 24 hours since Rachel's call, they had organized a complex operation that protected my interests and sought additional evidence against my children. "Detective, what will happen when my children return from the beach and discover the search?" I asked, imagining their reaction upon finding cops in their homes. "We have coordinated the operation to coincide with their absence. Our agents have orders to complete the search before they return. However, we need your cooperation for a crucial phase of the plan." The detective leaned forward, adopting a more confidential posture. "Mrs. Emily, we want to organize a controlled operation that allows us to obtain direct confessions from your children. The documentary evidence is compelling, but recorded testimonies would considerably strengthen the case." "What kind of operation?" I asked cautiously. "We would need you to return to Matt's house tonight, acting normally but wearing hidden recording devices. If we can get them to verbally admit to the plan, we will have irrefutable proof of conspiracy to commit fraud and possibly premeditated murder." The proposal terrified me. Voluntarily returning to the place where my own children had planned to drug me again, knowing that they were desperate and that their debt deadlines were approaching, seemed extremely dangerous. "Are there no less risky alternatives?" I asked, looking for a way out. "I understand your concern, but let us consider the current legal situation," the detective explained, consulting his notes. "We have documentary evidence of forgery, photographs of controlled substances, and compromising phone recordings. However, A competent lawyer could argue that you consciously signed those documents, that the medications are for legitimate medical use, and that the recorded conversations are open to multiple interpretations. Rachel, who had remained silent during the conversation, intervened with determination. "Mrs. Emily, I will be there to protect you. I can make sure that you do not consume anything they offer you and maintain constant communication with the police." "Miss Rachel is right," the detective confirmed. "She would be our official collaborator in the operation. Additionally, we will install external surveillance equipment and have rapid response units positioned within a 2-block radius." What happens if something goes wrong? If they realize they are being recorded, or if they decide to accelerate their plan? We have considered those risks. You would carry an emergency device that would trigger immediate intervention if you press a specific button. We will also establish security codes that Miss Rachel can use to request help without raising suspicions. The detective showed me a tiny device similar to a shirt button, but equipped with a highly sensitive microphone and a GPS transmitter. "Let us also consider the consequences of not acting decisively," he continued. "Your children are under extreme pressure from violent loan sharks. If they do not get the money in the next few days, they might attempt something desperate and irreversible." His words forced me to face a terrible reality. Regardless of my fears, my children had already crossed moral lines from which there was no return. If I did not stop them now, when I had police protection and legal evidence, the next opportunities might arrive too late. "When would this operation be?" I asked, feeling the weight of the decision crushing me. "Ideally tonight. According to our investigations, your children plan to invite you to dinner tomorrow, Sunday, to finalize certain family matters. Beating their schedule would give us a tactical advantage. How would I explain my unexpected return after leaving the beach?" Rachel suggested a convincing alibi. "You felt unwell during your walk. I found you disoriented near the parking lot and accompanied you to Matt's house so your children could take care of you." I nodded, recognizing that it was a plausible explanation. "I will tell them that I found you dizzy and worried about your blood pressure. They know my discretion and will not suspect that I contacted the police." The forensic technician returned with preliminary test results. "Detective, we confirmed the presence of diazepam in significant concentrations, and we have detected traces of a substance compatible with ketamine derivatives. The levels suggest administration in high doses approximately 1 week ago." "Perfect," the detective replied. "Mrs. Emily, this scientifically confirms that you were drugged. We have a solid basis to proceed with criminal charges." The scientific validation of Rachel's suspicions filled me with a mix of relief and horror. Relief because I finally had objective proof of the betrayal. Horror because it confirmed that my own children had been willing to chemically incapacitate me to rob me. "Detective, I agree to participate in the operation, but I need a guarantee. If something goes wrong, if my life is in true danger, your agents will intervene immediately, regardless of the state of the recording. You have my personal word and my professional commitment. Mrs. Emily, your safety is our absolute priority." Upon leaving the police station to prepare the final details of the night operation, a certainty crystallized in my mind. These were not the children I had raised, nor the adults I believed I had educated with ethical values. They were desperate criminals willing to do anything for money, and I would be the instrument of their own downfall. It was 6:30 in the evening when we returned to the police station to finalize the details of the night operation. Detective Miller had assembled a specialized team that included surveillance technicians, communications experts, and agents from the Rapid Intervention Unit. The professionalism of the group comforted me considerably. "Mrs. Emily, I would like to introduce you to Sergeant Smith, an undercover operations specialist, and Officer Davis, an expert in recording devices," the detective announced as he guided me to a meeting room equipped with detailed maps of the neighborhood where Matt lived. Sergeant Smith, a woman of about 35 years old with an athletic build and an intelligent gaze, laid out several tiny electronic devices on the table. "Mrs. Emily, you will use 3 redundant recording systems to ensure that we capture the entire conversation with perfect clarity," she explained, delicately manipulating the devices. First, this directional microphone integrated into a shirt button, which records audio within a 15-foot radius. Second, a GPS transmitter hidden in your belt that allows us to monitor your exact location in real time. She showed me the third device, a small camera the size of a coin. This will be the most important element. A micro camera with live transmission installed in your glasses. It will allow us to see exactly what you see and intervene instantly if we detect imminent danger. Officer Davis complimented the technical explanation. All devices are synchronized with our mobile command center that we will park about 500 feet from Matt's house. We will have a continuous audio-visual transmission and immediate response capability. How does the emergency system work? I asked, needing to feel safe. Sergeant Smith handed me what looked like a common pen. If you press this end twice in a row, it will activate a silent alarm in our command center. We will have agents bursting into the house in less than 90 seconds. If you press it 3 times, we will consider your life to be in immediate danger, and the intervention will be even faster. Rachel, who had been watching the demonstration with concentrated attention, raised a crucial concern. How do I communicate with you if I detect something suspicious before Mrs. Emily activates the emergency? Excellent question, Miss Rachel. You will carry this device, Officer Davis answered, showing her a seemingly normal cell phone. It is programmed with speed dial numbers. If you press 1, it will indicate the situation is under control, 2 means caution required, and 3 will trigger immediate intervention. Detective Miller unfolded aerial photographs of the residential area where Matt lived, pointing out strategic positions with red markers. We will have 6 agents distributed in 3 unmarked vehicles. A delivery van parked across from the park, a private car on the southeast corner, and an electric maintenance motorcycle on the back street. All access points will be monitored. And what if my children suspect something unusual in my behavior? I asked, anticipating possible complications. We have prepared a credible alibi to explain any nervousness, Sergeant Smith answered, consulting her notes. If they seem puzzled by your attitude, you can attribute it to the medical scare you had at the beach. It is natural for someone your age to feel restless after an episode of dizziness. Rachel added to the strategy. I will explain that I found you very worried about your health and that you insisted on coming back to be close to your family. They know my careful personality and will not question my version. What time should we arrive at Matt's house? I asked, feeling that the moment was inexorably approaching. The detective checked. According to the microphones we installed during the morning search, they are discussing your unexpected disappearance. They seem nervous but not suspicious. Did you manage to find additional evidence during the search? Considerably. We found the hidden folder that Miss Rachel mentioned, in addition to 3 extra cell phones that contained communications with illegal loan sharks. We also located a bottle of ketamine in Matt's refrigerator labeled as medicine for mom. The revelation hit me deeply. They had been so calculating that they had even prepared fake medications specifically to drug me repeatedly. What kind of conversation do you expect me to have with them? Ideally, we want you to mention concerns about your will or your savings, Sergeant Smith explained. Welcome to our story, family. If she expresses concerns about the safety of her money, they will probably try to reassure her by offering to manage it. That will be our chance to record incriminating confessions, Officer Davis added. It would also be helpful if you mentioned feeling confused about documents you remember signing recently. If they are worried that you are questioning the signatures from July 8th, they might reveal details about how they obtained them. Should I confront them directly with my suspicions? Absolutely not, the detective replied categorically. Any direct confrontation would put them on high alert and could provoke violent reactions. Keep the attitude of a worried but trusting mother. Let them be the ones to reveal compromising information. Lauren chimed in with a practical suggestion. Mrs. Emily could mention that she feels grateful to have such responsible children taking care of her. That could make them lower their guard and speak more freely about their plans to protect her. How long should the visit last? Between 1 and 2 hours, Sergeant Carter calculated. Enough time to get substantial recordings, but not so long as to raise suspicions about why you are staying longer than usual. The detective handed me a sealed envelope. Mrs. Emily, these are the transcripts of the telephone conversations we intercepted today between your children and Frankie the Knife. The threats had intensified considerably. I read with horror excerpts of dialogues where this Frankie demanded immediate payment and described in sadistic detail the consequences of default. They were not empty threats. They were specific promises of physical violence that included the whole family. When do you plan to intervene with this Frankie the Knife? Simultaneously with tonight's operation, while we record your children's confessions, another team will be arresting Frankie and his organization. We want to dismantle the whole network at once. The complexity of the operation impressed me. It was not just a case of family fraud. It was a comprehensive investigation against a criminal organization that had extended its tentacles to multiple victims. Are you mentally prepared for this, Mrs. Emily? Officer Davis asked with genuine concern. Hearing my own children confess to plans to murder me would be emotionally devastating. His question forced me to reflect on the inner strength I would need to complete this mission. Over the past 2 years, my renewed faith had taught me about forgiveness and compassion, but also about justice and the protection of the innocent. Officer, I have lived for 78 years and I have raised 3 children believing in values like honesty, family loyalty, and respect for life. Discovering that my own children have betrayed those principles is painful, but allowing them to continue doing so would be betraying everything my husband and I tried to teach them. Lauren took my hand in a gesture of support. Mrs. Emily, remember that you are not alone in this. We are all here to protect you and ensure that justice prevails. Detective Miller checked the watches of everyone participating. It is 7:15 in the evening. We will begin the deployment at 7:30. Mrs. Emily and Miss Lauren will arrive at Alex's house at exactly 8 o'clock. By then, all our systems will be operational and ready. As they discreetly adjusted the recording devices on me and checked their functionality, a mixture of terror and determination filled my chest. In less than an hour, I would face my children, knowing that it might be the last conversation we would have as a family. After tonight, they would simply be criminals who had tried to murder their own mother for money. At exactly 8 o'clock, Lauren stopped her car in front of Alex's house. My heart was beating so fast that I feared the recording devices would capture its frantic rhythm. The 2-story house, with its modern light brick facade and carefully maintained yard, looked exactly the same as always, but now I perceived it as the stage for a confrontation that would define the rest of my existence. The lights in the main living room were on, casting a warm glow that in other circumstances would have been welcoming. Tonight, however, that glow seemed sinister, like the deceitful glare of a carefully prepared trap. Mrs. Emily, remember to act naturally, Lauren whispered, discreetly checking her emergency phone. I will handle everything related to food and drinks. Do not touch anything that has not passed through my hands first. I took a deep breath, adjusted my glasses equipped with the micro camera, and gently touched the emergency pin in my right pocket to confirm its location. The wires of the button microphone felt strange against my chest, but I trusted that my blouse would hide them adequately. The door opened before we could even ring the doorbell. Alex appeared with an expression that combined feigned relief and apparent concern. Mom? Thank God you are okay. We were so worried when you disappeared from the beach without saying a word, he exclaimed, hugging me with an effusiveness that now felt completely fake, knowing his true intentions. Lauren found me feeling dizzy near the parking lot, I explained, following the prepared script. I felt confused and disoriented. I think it was too much sun for someone my age. Sarah appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a floral apron. Her smile seemed genuinely relieved, which momentarily confused me. Was it possible that she still had some shred of authentic love for me, or was she simply a consummate actress? Mom, you gave us a terrible scare. Jessica is in the living room. She was about to call the hospitals to see if you had been admitted, she said, approaching to examine my face with what looked like professional medical concern. Jessica emerged from inside the house, practically running. Her eyes showed an anxiety that could be interpreted as filial love, but which I now suspected had completely different motivations. "Mom, do you feel better? Do you need me to take you to the doctor? Has your blood pressure been irregular lately?" she asked, taking my arm with exaggerated delicacy. "I am fine, sweetheart. I just need to rest a bit and maybe have something cool to drink," I replied, allowing them to guide me toward the main living room. The inside of the house reflected the standard of living my children had been maintaining with borrowed money. Italian leather furniture, a giant flat-screen television, decorations that obviously cost more than any of their monthly salaries. Every object reminded me that they had been living an unsustainable financial lie. "Lauren, please bring some mineral water from the fridge," Alex requested with an apparently casual tone, but I detected an underlying tension in his voice. "Of course, Mr. Alex," Lauren replied, heading to the kitchen. She had been specifically instructed to control everything they offered me to drink. I sat on the main sofa from where I could observe the expressions of my 3 children. Sarah settled to my right, Jessica to my left, and Alex remained standing in front of me, unconsciously adopting a dominant position that I found revealing. "Mom, we have been talking about your financial situation," Alex began with an apparently concerned tone. "At your age, managing so many savings and complex banking decisions must be stressful. Why bring up that topic now?" I asked, feigning innocent surprise. Sarah chimed in with calculated delicacy. "Mom, we know that Dad always handled a lot of the paperwork. Without him, you must feel overwhelmed by so much financial responsibility. It is true that some things have become more complicated," I admitted, following the strategy suggested by the police. "Lately I have felt confused about some documents I remember signing." The 3 of them exchanged quick glances that the micro-camera would surely have captured. Alex cleared his throat before answering. "What kind of documents are you worried about, Mom?" "Well, I remember signing papers a week ago during our family lunch, but I cannot remember exactly what they were for. My memory is not what it used to be," I said, carefully observing their reactions. Jessica leaned toward me with an understanding expression. "Mom, those were just update forms for your health insurance. Nothing important, just routine paperwork we are managing to help you." "But I have the feeling that there were large figures involved, amounts that seemed significant," I insisted, maintaining a tone of genuine confusion. Alex sat in the armchair across from me, adopting a posture that was intended to be relaxed, but revealed muscle tension. "Mom, maybe it is time to consider establishing a simpler system to manage your finances. Something that takes the pressure off you and allows you to enjoy your retirement without administrative worries." Lauren returned with a sealed bottle of mineral water that she opened in front of me before pouring me a glass. Her movements were deliberate and careful, making sure I could see that the liquid had not been tampered with. "What kind of system do you suggest?" I asked, taking a sip of water. Sarah brightened visibly. "We could set up a joint account where one of us has authorization to handle your daily expenses. That would free you from having to remember bills, investments, and banking procedures." "A joint account? Would I not lose control over my own money?" "Not at all, Mom," Jessica replied with feigned sweetness. "It would simply be an administrative tool. You would maintain absolute ownership. We would only help you with the daily management." "Besides," Alex added, leaning forward, "considering your episode at the beach today, it might be prudent to have contingencies in place for your own safety and peace of mind." "What kind of contingency?" "Well, if you had another episode of confusion, or if your health worsened temporarily, you would need someone you trust to access your resources to pay for medications, urgent medical treatments, or any emergency," Sarah explained in an apparently logical tone. The conversation was unfolding exactly as the police had anticipated. My children were presenting apparently reasonable arguments to gain control over my assets, but now I knew their true motivations. "How much money do you think would be necessary to keep in that joint account?" I asked, feigning genuine consideration. Alex exchanged another quick glance with his sisters before answering. "To be completely safe, maybe the majority of your savings. That way you would be protected against any eventuality." "The majority?" Are we talking about the $950,000 I have saved up? The silence that followed was deafening. I had just confirmed the exact amount of my assets, information they needed to verify to finalize their plans. "Mom, how do you know that specific figure?" Jessica asked with a curiosity she could not completely hide. "I checked my bank statements last week. Was it after our family lunch when I felt so strange and sleepy? For some reason, I had insomnia that night and decided to review my finances." The three of them became visibly nervous. If I had actually checked my accounts after July 8th, I would have discovered the discrepancies caused by the documents they had made me sign under the influence of drugs. "Did you find anything unusual in your accounts?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Well, there were some movements I did not remember authorizing," I replied, watching the tension in the room increase palpably. Alex stood up abruptly and began walking toward the window. "Mom, sometimes banks process transactions with delays. It is normal to see movements that correspond to previous authorizations. Transactions of hundreds of thousands of dollars?" The silence filled the living room again. I had just crossed a line that would force them to reveal compromising information or admit their involvement in the financial irregularities. The atmosphere in the living room had become as thick as the morning fog. My three children exchanged loaded glances that I could now interpret with terrifying clarity. Alex stopped pacing and turned toward me with an expression that tried to remain calm, but his eyes betrayed a growing desperation. "Mom, I think there is a misunderstanding about those bank movements," he said, slowly returning to his seat like a predator evaluating its prey. "Maybe we should clarify exactly what you saw on your statements." "I saw transfers for considerable amounts that I do not remember authorizing," I repeated, maintaining the tone of vulnerable confusion that had characterized my entire performance. "Amounts that could solve very serious financial problems." Sarah shifted restlessly on the sofa, her fingers drumming nervously on the leather cushion. "Mom, sometimes we sign bank documents without paying complete attention to the details. It is normal at our age." "At your age, I mean." "My age? Are you implying that my mind is no longer working properly?" Jessica chimed in quickly, trying to soften her sister's comment. "Of course not, Mom. Sarah just means that managing complex finances can be stressful for anyone. But all of you seem to know more about my finances than I remember myself," I observed, allowing a note of suspicion to seep into my voice for the first time in the conversation. The silence that followed stretched for several uncomfortable seconds. I could see the three siblings communicating through glances, apparently reaching some kind of nonverbal consensus. Alex took a deep breath and adopted a more direct posture. "Mom, we need to be honest with you about our family situation." "What situation?" "The three of us have had some financial problems recently," he admitted with a tense voice. "Nothing serious, just some debts that piled up faster than we anticipated." Sarah nodded in support of her brother's version. "Mom, you know, we have always been responsible, but the current economic situation has been difficult for everyone. Expenses went up, salaries did not keep pace." "What kind of debts?" Jessica exchanged a significant look with Alex before answering. "Loans for the houses, the cars, some investments that did not turn out as we expected." "How much do you owe in total?" The question dropped like a bomb in the living room. The three of them tensed visibly, and for several seconds no one answered. "Is it?" "It is a considerable amount," Alex finally muttered. "Hundreds of thousands?" "Yes," Sarah admitted with a barely audible voice. "Almost $380,000? The impact of my specific question was immediate and devastating. Alex went completely pale. Sarah let out an involuntary gasp, and Jessica brought her hands to her mouth as if to take back the words she was about to say. "How do you know that exact figure?" Alex stammered. "Because that is precisely the amount that appears on transfer documents with my signature, a signature I do not remember making consciously," I replied with a calm I did not feel inside. Lauren, who had remained discreetly in a corner of the living room, approached to offer me more water. Her movements were deliberately slow, giving me time to process my children's reaction to my revelation. "Mom," Jessica said with a broken voice, "if you saw those documents, then you know we are in a desperate situation." Desperate? To what extent? Alex stood up again and began pacing in circles, running his hands through his hair. Mom, the people we owe money to are not. They are not exactly traditional banks. What does that mean? It means that if we do not pay soon, the consequences go beyond credit problems, Sarah explained, tears beginning to form in her eyes. What kind of consequences? Jessica sobbed before answering. Mom, they threatened us. They said that if we do not pay before Thursday, they would start with more persuasive methods. Who threatened you? Alex stopped in front of the window, with his back to me. A man named Ralph Miller, but everyone knows him by another name. What other name? Frankie the Knife, Sarah whispered. The name confirmed everything the police had revealed to me. My children had not only fallen into the web of illegal loan sharks, but had specifically chosen the most violent and dangerous one in the region. And what did this Frankie ask for? The full $380,000 plus accumulated interest. Alex replied, turning toward me, desperation evident on his face. In total, almost $400,000. By when? The day after tomorrow, July 20th. And what happens if you cannot pay? The silence took over the room again, but this time it was different. It was the silence of people who had contemplated terrible possibilities and made irreversible decisions. Mom, Jessica finally said with a barely audible voice. Frankie explained to us that he has methods to ensure payment one way or another. What methods? Alex returned to the sofa and sat across from me, leaning forward with an intense expression. Mom, if something happened to you, if you had an accident or a serious health problem, we would inherit immediately. The process would be fast, especially if there is a clear will and powers of attorney already established. The words I had just heard froze the blood in my veins. My own son had just admitted that they had considered my death as a solution to their financial problems. Are you suggesting that my death would be convenient for you? Sarah covered her face with her hands. Mom, we did not want to think about that, but Frankie pressured us to consider all available options. All the options? Jessica sobbed louder before confessing. Mom, Frankie told us that if we could not get the money from you voluntarily, we would have to ensure the payment another way. What other way specifically? Alex looked me directly in the eyes with a mixture of shame and desperate determination. Mom, at your age, a domestic accident would not look suspicious. A fall down the stairs, a heart problem during the night, something that looked natural. And you have already planned this accident? The silence confirmed my question more than any word could have. Sarah researched medications that could simulate heart problems, Jessica admitted between sobs. Jessica asked about rapid cremation procedures to avoid lengthy autopsies. And you, Alex? What was your part of the plan? My oldest son looked at me with a mixture of pain and resolution that broke my heart. I would be in charge of being with you when it happened to make sure you did not suffer and that everything looked natural. When was this accident supposed to happen? This week? Tomorrow? Sarah whispered. Frankie gave us until Thursday, so we would have to act before. Tomorrow? Alex nodded slowly. We had planned to invite you to dinner tomorrow. It was going to be the last time. The confessions I had just heard confirmed everything the police had suspected and more. My own children had not only planned to drug me and steal my money, but they had elaborated a detailed plan to murder me and make it look like a natural accident. And after your death, we would inherit immediately. We would pay Frankie, and no one would suspect anything, Jessica explained with a broken voice. You would be remembered as a beloved mother who died peacefully in her son's home. Have you considered that you are describing the premeditated murder of your own mother? The three of them began to cry simultaneously, but their tears no longer moved me. They were tears of self-pity, not of genuine remorse. Mom, we had no choice, Alex moaned. Frankie does not accept excuses. If we do not pay, he will kill us, and then he would come for you anyway. At that moment, with the full confessions recorded on the police devices, I knew my family had crossed a line of no return. They were no longer my children. They were desperate criminals who had chosen murder as a solution to their self-inflicted problems. The wall clock read 9:15 when I decided I had heard enough. My children's confessions had exceeded the police's most pessimistic expectations. Not only had they admitted the plan to drug me and steal my money, but they had specifically detailed their intention to murder me to speed up their inheritance. "My children," I said with a calm that surprised even myself, "what you have just confessed to me is one of the most serious crimes under the law." Alex straightened up sharply as if my words had triggered an alarm in his brain. "Mom, why are you using that word? Confess to me. You sound like a judge or a police officer." His observation made me aware that my vocabulary had subtly changed during the conversation. After spending the whole afternoon with investigators and lawyers, I had unconsciously adopted their legal terminology. "Alex, I am your mother, and you have just explained to me that you were planning to kill me tomorrow night," I replied, maintaining a serene tone. "How do you expect me to react to such a revelation?" Sarah got up from the sofa with nervous movements. "Mom, you are talking strangely. Normally you are more emotional when we discuss serious family problems." Jessica also stood up, studying my face with growing attention. "Mom, are you okay? There is something different about your behavior since you arrived." The tension in the room began to transform. My children were moving from confessional guilt to defensive suspicion. Their survival instincts were kicking in as they detected inconsistencies in my performance. "Different in what sense?" I asked, trying to maintain the character of a confused old woman. "Normally, after hearing something so disturbing, you would be screaming, crying, or at least shaking," Alex observed, approaching me with cautious steps. "But you are too calm, too controlled." Lauren intervened from her position by the kitchen. "Mrs. Emily has been very upset since the episode at the beach. Maybe the shock made her react differently." "Shock?" Sarah repeated, looking at Lauren with growing suspicion. "Lauren, you found my mother at the beach, right? Exactly where and how?" "I found her near the parking lot. She seemed disoriented and worried about her blood pressure," Lauren replied with the rehearsed version. "But why were you at the beach?" Jessica pressed. "It was supposed to be your day off, and normally you spend it with Sophie at home." The question revealed a detailed knowledge of Lauren's personal routine that unsettled me. My children had been monitoring their maid's movements with an attention that suggested paranoia or preparation for something specific. "Sophie wanted to go to the beach, so we decided to spend the day there," Lauren explained, but her voice betrayed growing nervousness. Alex stopped directly in front of me, leaning down to examine my face. "Mom, something does not add up in this whole situation." "What does not add up?" "First, you mysteriously disappear from the beach without explanation. Then you return hours later with Lauren, who coincidentally found you. Now you interrogate us about our financial problems using legal terminology, and you react with unnatural calm to confessions that should emotionally devastate you." His analysis was too precise. My performance had been convincing during the first part of the conversation, but maintaining the character through such extreme revelations required theatrical skills I did not possess. "I just discovered that my own children plan to murder me," I said, partially abandoning the pretense. "Did you expect me to react with hysteria?" "I expected you to react like our mother, not like a professional investigator," he replied, his voice growing increasingly tense. Sarah went to the window and slightly pulled back the curtain. "Mom, there are several vehicles parked in unusual places on our street. A van I have never seen before, a car that has been there too long." My heart raced. The police operation was being detected by my children, whose paranoia had heightened their powers of observation. "What are you implying, Sarah?" "I am implying that maybe your disappearance from the beach was not as accidental as you made us believe," she replied, turning toward me with an increasingly hostile expression. Jessica joined her sister by the window. "Sarah is right. There is too much suspicious vehicle activity to be a coincidence." Alex went to a drawer in the living room cabinet and pulled out some small binoculars as he watched the street through them. His expression hardened progressively. "Mom, the man in the blue car is wearing an earpiece and has communication equipment visible on the passenger seat," he announced with a cold voice. The delivery van does not have real logos from any company, and there is someone watching from inside. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. My children had identified the police surveillance and now considered me responsible for attracting that attention. "What are you suggesting?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. "I am suggesting that you have betrayed us," Alex replied with a harshness I had never heard in his voice. "Somehow, you alerted the authorities about our conversations." Lauren tried to intervene. "Mr. Alex, Mrs. Emily has been with me all afternoon. She has had no opportunity to contact anyone." "All afternoon with you?" Sarah repeated with poisonous sarcasm. "A maid who coincidentally becomes our mother's constant companion the same day police surveillance appears on our street. Lauren only helped me when I felt sick," I protested weakly. Jessica returned from the window with a look of growing fury. "Mom, do you know what I think really happened? I think Lauren discovered something about our plans. She warned you, and together you contacted the police. That is ridiculous." "Is it ridiculous?" Alex interrupted, approaching me menacingly. "Then explain why you are wearing a different shirt than the one you had on at the beach this morning." His observation hit me like a lightning bolt. Indeed, during the preparation for the operation at the police station, I had changed my shirt to accommodate the recording devices. A seemingly insignificant detail that now compromised the entire operation. "I changed because the other one was sweaty after the episode at the beach," I lied desperately. "And where did you get this new shirt?" "I do not recognize it from your wardrobe," Sarah pressed. Before I could answer, Alex lunged at me and began to feel my shirt with expert hands. "Mom, there is something hard here, like a strange button." His fingers found the recording device. "It is a microphone," he yelled, violently ripping the device from my shirt. "She is recording us." Sarah ran toward me and began examining my glasses. "And this looks like a tiny camera." Jessica ran toward Lauren with a murderous expression. You contacted them. You organized all this." "Miss Jessica, please," Lauren cried, backing against the wall. Alex crushed the microphone under his foot with uncontrolled fury. "Mom, you just destroyed your own family. You just condemned us all." At that exact moment, as if waiting for that specific signal, the front and back doors of the house burst open simultaneously with a deafening crash. "Police on the ground, now!" yelled the officers who burst in from multiple directions, filling the living room with authoritative orders and the metallic sound of handcuffs being prepared. Detective Miller appeared among the first officers, heading directly toward me. "Mrs. Emily, are you hurt?" "I am fine, Detective," I replied, watching as my 3 children were forced to the ground with their hands behind their backs. "Mom!" Alex yelled as they put the handcuffs on him. "You betrayed us. We are your family." "Mrs. Vance," Officer Davis called from the entrance. "We have simultaneously arrested Frankie the Knife and 2 associates. We found documentation confirming the threats against your family." Sarah sobbed hysterically as they lifted her from the floor. "Mom, we were your children. How could you do this to us?" "You were my children until you decided to murder me for money," I replied with a firmness that surprised me. Jessica looked at me with pure hatred as she was escorted toward the door. "You will regret this. Family protects each other. They do not betray." "Miss Lauren," Sergeant Carter said, approaching Lauren, "your bravery has saved a life and dismantled a criminal organization. You will have police protection until the legal process is finished." As I watched my 3 children being placed in separate police vehicles, a mixture of relief and emotional devastation completely washed over me. I had saved my life, but I had lost my family forever. The months following that night of July 15th were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, court testimonies, and revelations that continued to shake the foundations of what I once considered my family reality. The legal process formally began on August 15, 2023, when the District Attorney's Office of Chicago filed formal charges against Alex, Sarah, and Jessica for attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy, and fraudulent administration of another's assets. The trial was held in the county courthouse, an imposing room with high ceilings and dark wood-paneled walls that reflected the solemnity of the judicial system. During the first sessions, I had to face the surreal experience of testifying against my own children, who sat in the defendant's dock in prison uniforms, their expressions alternating between shame and resentment. Prosecutor Karen Stone, a 45-year-old woman with a reputation for being relentless in domestic violence cases, presented a devastatingly solid case. The recordings obtained during the police operation were played in their entirety before the court, causing visible chills among the jury members as they heard my children plan my murder with calculated coldness. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the prosecutor declared during her opening statement, "we are facing one of the most abhorrent cases of family betrayal that has ever reached this court. 3 adult individuals, beneficiaries for decades of their mother's love and generosity, meticulously conspired to drug her, steal her entire fortune, and finally eliminate her physically to accelerate their inheritance." The defense attorneys tried multiple strategies to minimize the severity of the charges. Alex's lawyer argued that the debts to violent loan sharks had subjected his clients to external coercion that limited their capacity for rational decision-making. Sarah's defender claimed that his client had acted under the dominant psychological influence of her older brother. Jessica's lawyer maintained that she was simply a collateral victim of her siblings' decisions. However, the evidence presented by the prosecution was overwhelming. In addition to the audio and video recordings from the police operation, investigators had recovered extensive telephone communication records, text messages detailing each phase of the plan, and forensic evidence confirming the administration of controlled substances without my consent. The most impactful testimony came from Lauren. For 2 full days, she detailed before the court how she had gradually discovered the conspiracy, accurately describing the conversations she had overheard, the documents she had photographed, and the moral decision that led her to risk her personal safety to protect me. The most devastating moment of the trial came when the court played the full recording of my children's confessions. Hearing their voices again, coldly admitting that they had planned to speed up my departure and that a domestic accident would not look suspicious, shattered me emotionally, but it also strengthened my resolve to let justice take its course. On December 18, 2023, after 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned unanimous guilty verdicts on all charges against the 3 defendants. The presiding judge pronounced the sentences with appropriate solemnity. 15 years in prison without the possibility of parole before serving 10 years of the sentence. When I heard those words, I experienced a complex mixture of relief, sadness, and final justice. My children had received the appropriate consequences for their actions, but that did not alleviate the pain of having forever lost the people who were once the most important thing in my life. Frankie the Knife and his associates received even harsher sentences. 18 years for Frankie for leading the criminal organization, and 12 years for each of his accomplices for aggravated extortion and severe threats. As I left the courtroom for the last time, Alex yelled at me from the defendant's dock. "Mom, someday you will regret this. We are your only family." I turned toward him one last time and replied, "Alex, my family died the night you decided to kill me." The criminals going to prison today simply had the names of my children. The months after the trial marked the beginning of the most transformative stage of my existence. January of 2024 arrived with a sense of liberation I had not experienced since David's death. For the first time in years, I could sleep peacefully, knowing that no one was planning to hurt me, that my financial decisions were genuinely mine, and that the people close to me valued me for who I was, not for what I possessed. The first major decision I made was to legally formalize my relationship with Lauren and Sophie. On February 15th, 2024, I completed the paperwork to establish a family trust that would guarantee their financial future. I had set up a full educational fund for Sophie that would cover everything from her elementary education to college studies, including graduate school if she so desired. I had also created a security fund that would guarantee Lauren's economic stability throughout her life. "Mrs. Emily, this is too generous," Lauren protested, her voice choked with emotion. "That is exactly why you deserve it," I replied, hugging her like the daughter I never thought I would have again. "You saved my life without expecting any benefit. Now I want to make sure you have all the opportunities my biological children threw away." Sophie's integration into my life was surprisingly natural. This intelligent 9-year-old girl possessed an insatiable curiosity and an innate goodness that constantly reminded me why it is worth building a better future. "Grandma Emily," she said, using the title she had spontaneously adopted, "why do my classmates say it is strange that my grandmother is not really my grandmother?" "Sophie, some grandparents are lucky enough to choose their grandchildren, and some grandchildren are lucky enough to choose their grandparents. We chose each other mutually." In the afternoons, after Sophie finished her homework, we established routines that filled my life with renewed purpose. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I took her to piano lessons at the City Conservatory. On Saturday mornings, we attended swimming lessons together at the Aquatic Club. On Sundays after church, we visited museums, parks, or simply strolled through the historic district while she told me her dreams and aspirations. My spiritual life also experienced a significant deepening during this period. Father Anthony had been my guide during the darkest moments after David's death, and now he became my partner in building something positive and lasting. "Emily," he proposed during one of our post-Mass conversations in April of 2024, "I have been thinking about your situation. You have received a second chance at life, literally. Have you considered how you could use this experience to help others facing similar situations?" Over the following weeks, we developed the concept of what would become the David Vance Center for Senior Support. The center would bear the name of my late husband, honoring his memory while serving the community in a way he would have fully approved of. In May of 2024, I purchased a 3-story building in a downtown neighborhood near the parish. The center included offices for free legal advice, spaces for psychological therapy, classrooms for educational workshops on financial protection, and a specialized library with resources for seniors. We also established a 24-hour emergency hotline for elderly people facing situations of abuse or family manipulation. Lauren accepted my offer to become the center's administrative director. Her personal experience detecting abuse, combined with her intuitive understanding of dysfunctional family dynamics, made her the perfect person to lead daily operations. "Mrs. Emily," she told me, "during the first week of operation in September of 2024, we have received 17 calls from people who suspect they are being manipulated by relatives. 3 cases seem as serious as yours." During this period of active rebuilding, I received 47 letters from my children from prison. All followed the same pattern: requests for forgiveness, promises of change, appeals to family unity, and occasional veiled threats about my future loneliness without them. I read each letter meticulously, but I never answered any, not out of cruelty, but because I had developed a clear understanding of the difference between genuine remorse and continuous manipulation. In October of 2024, Sarah tried a different approach, sending a letter that said, "Mom, Dad would be devastated if he knew you have completely rejected your children. He always believed in Christian forgiveness. Do you not think we have paid enough for our mistakes?" That letter bothered me more than the others because it used David's memory to emotionally manipulate me. I decided to reply, but not directly to her. Instead, I wrote a letter to the prison chaplain explaining my position and asking him to share it with my children if he considered it appropriate. "Dear Father Johnson, my late husband David indeed believed in Christian forgiveness, but he also believed in justice, the protection of the innocent, and appropriate consequences for serious actions. Forgiving does not mean eliminating the legal consequences of a crime, nor does it require restoring relationships with people who proved willing to commit murder for financial gain." As 2025 began, my life with Lauren and Sophie acquired a comforting routine that contrasted sharply with the loneliness I had experienced after David's death. Our house in Lincoln Park, once a space filled with melancholic memories, now resonated with Sophie's laughter, conversations over dinner, and the simple pleasure of sharing day-to-day life with people who genuinely cared about me. Lauren had proven to be not only a hero who saved my life, but also an exceptional companion in this new stage. Her practical intelligence and innate compassion perfectly complemented my experience and resources. Together, we had transformed the David Vance Center into a recognized refuge for vulnerable seniors. Mrs. Emily, the mayor has requested to meet with us, Lauren informed me one morning in February while we were having breakfast. He wants to learn more about our early abuse detection program. He is considering implementing it at the municipal level. That would be wonderful, I replied, feeling a surge of satisfaction. David always used to say that helping one person is noble, but creating a system that helps hundreds is transcendental. One Thursday in March, I received an unexpected call. It was Mary Smith, the center's lead social worker, informing me about an urgent case, an 83-year-old man admitted with signs of medication overdose. His granddaughter suspected that the man's own son was administering medications to incapacitate him and gain access to his estate. Upon visiting the hospital with Detective Miller, I felt a deep connection with that unknown old man. His vulnerability, his family betrayal, reflected my own story, but unlike my case, his granddaughter had recognized the warning signs in time. "This is exactly why we created the center," I remarked to Mary as we headed back. "For every case we attend to, there are probably dozens that go unnoticed. Your personal experience has been fundamental, Mrs. Emily. You recognize patterns that professionals without that lived experience might overlook." One morning in April, I received a letter with the prison hospital's letterhead. Upon opening it, my heart skipped a beat. It was from Sarah. "Dear Mom, I do not know if you will read this letter or if, like the previous ones, it will go unanswered. I do not blame you. I am writing because the doctors have confirmed what I suspected. I have advanced stage pancreatic cancer, the same one that took Dad. The irony does not escape me. The prognosis gives me less than 6 months. The news impacted me deeply. Despite everything that had happened, she was my daughter, and knowing that she faced alone the same cruel disease that had consumed David caused me unexpected pain. After days of reflection and conversations with Lauren and Father Anthony, I made a difficult decision. I would visit Sarah. Not for reconciliation, but out of basic human compassion. No one should die alone, regardless of their past actions. My first visit to the prison hospital was a heartbreaking experience. The woman in the bed barely looked like my daughter. Sarah, always worried about her appearance, was now an emaciated shadow. Her yellowish skin revealed the liver condition typical of advanced pancreatic cancer. "Mom, is it really you?" she whispered in disbelief. "Yes, Sarah, I have come to see you." During our brief visit, Sarah surprised me with an honesty I did not expect. "Mom, I am not going to ask for your forgiveness. Not because I am not sorry. I am sorry with every fiber of my being, but because it would be insulting. Some actions are beyond forgiveness. What we plan to do, what I plan to do, is unforgivable." Then she revealed a devastating truth. The plan to eliminate you did not start with the debts to Frankie the Knife. The truth is that Alex and I had been discussing the possibility for months before Dad died. Why? Pure and simple greed. We had been living beyond our means for years. We saw your estate as the solution to our problems. Her brutal honesty left me speechless. There were no excuses. There were no justifications. Only the raw confession of a moral depravity I would never have believed possible in my own children. "Why are you telling me this now?" I finally asked. Facing my own death has forced me to see the truth of my actions with ruthless clarity. I thought you deserved that same clarity. During the following weeks, I visited Sarah regularly. On our third visit, she handed me a sealed envelope. It contains a full confession, notarized by the chaplain. Above all, our initial plans, the manipulations, the external accomplices. It might help other people identify similar patterns. Sarah passed away peacefully one night in May. Her funeral was a small and sober ceremony. Alex and Jessica could not attend, although they sent letters that the chaplain read during the service. Both expressed remorse, although they lacked the honesty that Sarah had shown in her final days. The spring of 2025 brought with it a blossoming not only of the changing seasons in the city, but also of the David Vance Center. What had started as a local initiative was quickly becoming a reference model for the entire state of Illinois. Sarah's notarized confession proved to be invaluable to the authorities. Detective Miller used it as a roadmap for an expanded investigation that unmasked an organized network of financial exploitation of seniors operating in several counties. Several lawyers, notaries, and bank employees were prosecuted, along with illegal loan sharks who served as recruiters of vulnerable families. In June, I received a visit from the Director of Social Services for the state, Frank Morgan. "Mrs. Emily, what you have achieved here in barely 8 months is extraordinary," he commented as we toured the facilities. "Your early financial abuse detection program has caught the attention of the Department of Social Services. We want to implement your model in all regions of the state." The proposal surprised me with its scope. Going from helping a few dozen people in the city to potentially thousands across the state was a qualitative leap I had not anticipated so soon. After consulting with the team, we accepted the proposal with certain conditions to guarantee the integrity of our methodology. The regional expansion of the David Vance Center officially began in September of 2025, with 8 new branches inaugurated in a ceremony presided over by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. In December of 2025, Lauren and I were invited to participate in an advisory committee of the Department of Social Services for the drafting of a new comprehensive senior protection law. The Vance Law, as the media dubbed it, represented an institutional recognition of the specific vulnerability of seniors and established concrete mechanisms for their protection. The second anniversary of David's death coincided with the center's first anniversary. We organized a special ceremony in the main courtyard where a commemorative plaque was unveiled. In memory of David Vance, 1943 to 2021, whose integrity and compassion inspire our daily work. And in solidarity with all seniors who face abuse in silence, your dignity matters, your voice will be heard. Sophie, now 11 years old, offered a piano recital during the ceremony. Her interpretation of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, executed with a maturity surprising for her age, moved everyone present. One afternoon in October, while I was supervising a group therapy session for seniors who had suffered psychological abuse, Mercedes, an elegant 82-year-old widow, shared her experience. "My daughter-in-law began by suggesting I was confused, forgetful. Then came the help with my finances, the signatures on documents I could barely read. When my granddaughter discovered they had sold my beach house without my real knowledge, it was already too late." Her story resonated painfully with my own experience. The emotional manipulation preceding the financial abuse, the systematic erosion of autonomy, the isolation from possible allies. You know it better than anyone, do you not? Everyone knows your story, Mrs. Emily. You are our beacon of hope. If you could stand up to your own children and rebuild your life, we can too. Her words confirmed to me that my personal tragedy had become a symbol of resistance for others. My pain had a purpose that transcended my individual experience. In November, I received unexpected news. The judge had granted prison furloughs to Alex and Jessica for good behavior. Both had requested to see me. My first reaction was negative, but Sophie, with her characteristic insight, made me reflect. "Grandma, when Martina broke my doll on purpose, I forgave her when I saw how sad she was. But we do not play together like before anymore. Perdonar no significa volver a ser como antes, verdad?" Exactly, sweetheart. Forgiving means freeing oneself from the weight of resentment without forgetting the lesson learned. After weeks of consideration, I agreed to a supervised meeting with my 2 children at the penitentiary center. The meeting was tense but cathartic. There was no miraculous reconciliation, but there was a mutual recognition of realities. They had committed unforgivable acts, and I had built a new life that did not include them. At the end of 2025, while I was writing in my personal diary, I reflected on the extraordinary transformation my life had undergone. A year and a half ago, I was a lonely and vulnerable widow, manipulated by my own children, living in constant unknown danger. Today, I am the grandmother of a wonderful girl who fills my days with joy, the adoptive mother of an exceptional woman who risked everything to save me, and the founder of an organization that is helping hundreds of people in situations similar to mine. On December 23, 2025, exactly 4 years after David's death, I organized a special dinner at home. Lauren, Sophie, Mary, Detective Miller, Father Anthony, and other close friends of the center shared our table. During dessert, I raised my glass for a toast. To David, whose spirit of goodness and justice lives on in every person we help. To Lauren and Sophie, who taught me that true family is built with loyalty and love, not with shared blood. And to all those who have found their voice and dignity through our work. The next day, I received a call from Father Johnson. Alex had requested an extraordinary furlough for Christmas. During his free time, he had voluntarily visited a drug rehabilitation center, offering to share his testimony as a warning about the consequences of decisions driven by greed. He is not looking for a sentence reduction, the chaplain assured me. He says it is his way of starting to make amends, although he knows some damage is irreparable. The news left me with mixed feelings. Was it possible that, after hitting rock bottom, my children were finding a path toward personal redemption? I did not have the answer, but it comforted me to think that perhaps, through their own suffering, they could prevent others from causing the same harm. In January of 2026, the Department of Social Services officially presented the Vance Law before the state Congress. I was invited to speak briefly during the ceremony. This law, I said before the cameras and the legislators, is not just about protecting the estates of senior citizens, but about defending their dignity, their autonomy, and their right to live without fear of those who should love them most. My personal story is just one among thousands. The difference is that I had someone who saved me. This law aims to be that salvation for many who suffer in silence. Spring brought with it a national expansion of the Vance Center model, 10 new branches in different states, training for social service professionals, and a new educational program for schools about respect for the elderly. One Sunday in May, as we strolled through Millennium Park, I watched Sophie run a few yards ahead, her youthful energy contrasting with our more leisurely pace. Do you know what she told me yesterday? Lauren commented with a smile, that when she grows up, she wants to study geriatrics and law so she can defend grandparents like Grandma Emily. She is an extraordinary girl, I replied, feeling a surge of pride and affection. Just like her grandmother, Lauren replied, gently squeezing my hand. I stopped for a moment, contemplating Sophie, who was now watching some street performers with fascination, her face illuminated by the joy of discovery, her future unfolding before her like a blank canvas. At 80 years old, I had learned that the greatest betrayals can open doors to unexpected blessings, that true family is defined not by blood, but by loyalty, respect, and genuine love. I had lost 3 children who turned out to be greedy strangers, but I had gained a loyal daughter and a precious granddaughter who filled my life with renewed purpose. My money, which once represented a mortal danger, was now a tool of protection and opportunity for others. The sun was beginning to set over the city, bathing Millennium Park in a golden light. Lauren offered me her arm, and together we walked toward Sophie, toward the future, toward the life we had built from the ashes of betrayal, a life that, against all odds, overflowed with meaning, purpose, and love. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever gone through something similar? Comment below.